General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
Broadcasting live on WNN 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is Make America Think Again with your Google Blacklisted host, Tom Trento.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
And the Lord said to Moses, say to the Israelites, on the first day of the 7th month, you're to have a day of Sabbath rest, a sacred assembly, commemorate it with trumpet blasts. Do no regular work, but present a food offering to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, the 10th day of the 7th month is the day of atonement. Hold a sacred assembly and deny yourselves and present a food offering to the Lord. Do not do any work on that day because it is the day of atonement. When atonement is made for you before the Lord your God, those who deny themselves on that day must be cut off from their people. I will destroy from among their people anyone who does any work on that day. You shall do no work at all. This is to be the lasting ordinance for the generations to come wherever you live. It is a day of Sabbath rest for you, and a day you must deny yourselves. From the evening of the 9th day of the month until the following evening, you are to observe your Sabbath. Shana Tova to all our Jewish brothers and sisters. It's Rosh Hashanah, the new year, the beginning this evening, sundown. Everything happens at sundown for our Jewish brothers and sisters. If they're MIA for the next 10 days, the Bible told them to be MIA about 4,000 years ago, and they follow that. This is the beginning of what has been known as the High Holy Days, starting with the new year, the celebration. Let the trumpets, you heard in Leviticus, let the trumpets be heard. You will hear the ram's horn, as we did the other night at our Jexit rally, the shofar blowing. And if you were in Jerusalem today and this evening, you would have a hair-raising experience on your arms with the shofar blowing all over the place, calling in the beginning, as I just read, of a 10-day period culminating with Yom, the day, Kippur, of atonement, the day where Jewish people recognize and acknowledge the sin from the previous year, make amends, atonement, at one with God, atonement. Make atonement to God to do better in the year to come. And you may get a phone call from your Jewish friends 10 days from now saying, hey, if I did anything wrong, let me know. I apologize. And I want to atone myself to you, my friend, and I want to atone myself ultimately to my God. And that's what's going on right now. If you have Jewish friends, they invited you over to their home this evening. You're going to get fat. You're going to eat a lot of sweet stuff. It's a time of celebration and a new year. I think it's 5780 or 81, depending on the Hebrew calendar. We'll ask our Hebrew expert who'll be with us in a little bit. And a happy time. So these 10 days, you may not see all your Jewish friends everywhere, but rest assured, they're there, particularly evangelical Christians, supporting us in what we do as we have developed a phenomenal bond, absolutely phenomenal bond, as we are fellow theological warriors together against the evil secularism of the day. We are indeed in a spiritual battle for America.
So this is Yom Kippur Day?
No. That's 10 days from today.
Oh.
You got your...
And that's when the Arabs attack, right?
In 1973.
Okay. Just checking.
Because it's such a high holy day where everything comes to a stop, the Arabs say, let's go after them Jews on Yom Kippur 1973.
Okay.
And you know what? It almost worked. But again, as an evangelical Christian that is somewhat familiar with biblical history, you have to be not only theologically blind, but mentally blind to not see the almighty, the omnipotent hand of God in the everyday lives of the nation of Israel, culminating in our lifetime in 1967 in the Six-Day War, in 73 in the Yom Kippur War. Tom, what are these Jews and these wars? Why are they always at war? What's going on? Read your Hebrew Bible. Constant wars. Why? Why are we at war right now with secularism in the United States of America, with liberalism, with Marxism? All of those isms and ideologies necessitate the destruction of a personal God. And if you hold to a personal God vis-a-vis Israel, Israel's call, chosen people, not chosen because they're better than anyone else, chosen for a mission, for a task that nobody wanted, not even the Jews wanted. Moses, what are you doing to me? Why are you calling me to do this? I don't want to do this. I want you to take this message, and this is the call to every Jew today, wherever you are, wherever you are on the political spectrum. You have an eternal call from God to bring the concept of monotheism, a real God operating in a real world in the real lives of people, to this culture. And if you're not doing that, you're failing at your job as a Jew. You may have fun tonight and family and all of that, but your calling is to bring the message of God to people in a secular world. So, my brothers and sisters who are of the Jewish faith, it's a high calling. It's not a low calling. It's a high calling. Fulfill your high calling, and let it start with this.
I got to correct
This,
you.
hang on, Mark. Let it start with this New Year day to fulfill your high calling, and let it culminate in a recommitment of your life on Yom Kippur, which is what it's all about. Not only to be a better person, to be a better messenger for God. Very, very important. Yes, Mark, what's up?
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right.
But it's you said the reason they don't like Jews is because of the monotheistic angle. They just hate Jews. You know, the Louis Farrakhan's, Elon Omar's, they just hate. Everybody who's against Israel, they just hate Jews. Just I mean, anti-Semitism right out. That's what it is.
Yeah, there's many, many layers to that. And on today's show, Tom Trento, 9:10 in the morning, WWNN, 1470 on the AM side. You're listening to, we follow Steve Kane and Brian Craig. They do phenomenal work. You need to listen to them. They're the longest running talk show in South Florida. Tremendous accolade. We are the shortest running talk show in South Florida. So we both have unique appellations next to our high calling here, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio worldwide. We think, Mark, we solved a little technical glitch we've had for past couple of days. It looks like our
Oh, thanks, Tom.
our internet. Yeah, I want everybody to I have faith. Our internet provider screwed around. Hey, we're putting a video together that's an expose on Verizon, on Google, on a variety of tech people, Twitter, that are blackballing us, screwing with our internet, screwing with our website, blocking our emails. I mean, it's become ridiculous. We'll have that out in about a week. We're doing all the research.
And this is documented, proven IT. I'm a Cisco network engineer, so I can understand all their gobbledygook and tech talk. And it's 100% that they're blocking us from AOL, from Verizon emails. They're screwing with our servers, putting up warning messages. Your servers could cause your computer to blow up type of messages. It's all coming from all these different this is how they're going to be blackballing the rest of it. We're the canary in the coal mine, people. We really are.
It's getting bad. I mean, the United West, Tom at the United West, I can't send an email out to anyone at AOL, anyone at Verizon, anyone at Hotmail, anyone at Yahoo, they have said that the United West doesn't satisfy their policy statement, whatever that means, we have no idea. And therefore, anyone who's a subscriber to any of those emails is not allowed, even if they want to, is not allowed, they can't opt in, is not allowed to get an email from the domain name theunitedwest.org. This is a dictatorial decision by Verizon, who owns all those emails now, and it's gone even farther. We're having difficulty sending from Gmail accounts because now it looks like they're tracking us other ways and blocking us. But that's going to come out later. Today we got a very important show. Yeah.
Tom, I just want to add to all of this discussion that we have confirmed that theunitedwest.org is a secure site, even with all of the messages that people are getting, trying to block them from reaching us. It is a secure site that people can go to. We have confirmed that.
And you see that by the little HTTPS at the end of the thing where it says S on it. That's just secure. HTTP hypertext transfer protocol, secure with the S.
Yeah, up in the
multiple browsers.
So all that gobbledygook means that if you go to the United.org right now, you may get this crazy warning, danger, danger, Will Robin, and they're trying to scare you away. It'll say enter at your own risk, and everybody gets scared. I do when I go to those things. I don't go near them fishing or whatever. It's baloney. Our site is secure. It's just another, whatever. We're going to get to the bottom. It's hurting our donations.
It's like blacklisting us on Google, as far as like search engines and stuff like that. They push us way down the list, and also YouTube. I put up a blank screen for 10 seconds with no sound, no audio, no anything, and it says, "Oh, I'm not suitable for audience content." I'm going, yeah, really?
So it's a mess, and we'll tell you more about that. We got a great show today. It's Friday. We have historically had Jumpin' Juma Freaky with us now, I see. And we're going to take a look at the Middle East. We have two distinguished guests, very close friends of ours. And we're going to have a sort of a fireside chat and just discuss what's going on in the Middle East. But Mark, let me introduce this for the folks at 9:15 in the morning with a video, a compilation of what the expert talking head said before December 6th, 2017. On December 6th, 2017, I happened to have been in the hospital getting a checkup, and I heard the news that day of what President Trump said, and I said, "Oh my God, this can't be. I can't believe it." And I got concerned. But on that day, he said that he has made a decision. This was December 6th, 2017. He said, "I've made a decision. I'm going to move the embassy in Tel Aviv, the U.S. embassy, to Jerusalem. I'm doing it. Damn the torpedoes." And within seconds, the naysayers,
the
fraudsters, the hucksters, the crazies, actually world experts, came out and condemned President Trump for his decision to move it, which would be May 14th, 2018, and we were there. Your guests, our guests in a few minutes, were there on that day. You have it ready for us? All right, listen to this. This is what came out right after
hopes of Middle East peace once and for all.
The president's unilateral action will get people killed. How hot will it get? And how destabilizing will it be?
What he has done is thrown a diplomatic bomb into the Middle East peace process.
They're not interested in history. They don't know history. That would then embarrass all the Sunni Arab regimes. They would have to do something, enormously complicating, by the way, Israel's relations with them.
It's going to stop any hope of Middle East progress in the peace talks.
This kind of policy, unilateral decision, will basically wreck the Middle East.
Despite warnings from Turkey's President Erdogan, the kings of Jordan and Saudi Arabia, and all of America's NATO allies, that this could kill hopes for Middle East peace.
You'd have an explosion, an absolute explosion in the region.
You have an explosion, and then they show the peace decisions of this past week. Let's bring on our guest, Dr. Roni Wexler. You're with us, Ron?
I am. Good morning, Shana Tova. Listen, Tom, I heard your brief message about Rosh Hashanah, and I must tell you that the man that you are, so versatile, I would push you to run for an office in Israel, no less than Minister of Education.
The Minister of Education. Okay. If accepted, if elected, I will not serve, right? Claire, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, and Shana Tova to all of our Jewish friends.
It's a happy day in many respects, even though there's so much heartache around the world. Clare Lopez, our dear friend, did a stint about 20 years with the Clowns in Action. I'm sorry, Central Intelligence Agency, and Dr. Roni Wexler, Israeli warfighter in that 73 war, in the 67 war, was there. Leads our tours to Israel every year, except this Wuhan year. Ron, you just saw, and Claire's with Lopez Liberty now, her organization, and we're going to find out how to get in touch with Claire. You just saw the clip about the naysayers. That was late December 2017. What did that say to you, and what did you feel when you heard in December 2017 that he's gonna move the embassy? Were you worried at all?
I was not worried at all. It was a dream come true. We've been talking about it forever. United States said it's going to happen every year when a new president comes in, and every 6 months, a push button was there to delay. So we're ready for the move, and we wanted it to happen. Did we know that it will not bring war? I can talk for all of Israel, but among my friends and the people that know what's going on, no one thought it will bring to any war. In fact, many of us thought that it will bring a better reason to negotiate from a power point of view. One thing I can say before I end answering that particular question, there's no doubt, and Claire will second me, no doubt, that in the Middle East, when you're strong, you have a word to say. If you come from a point of weakness, you're dead. So be strong, fear nothing, and this day in Rosh Hashanah, we say the whole world is one very narrow bridge. And the most important thing is not to let fear come in. So it's something that we in Israel understand very well. We were not afraid of it, and obviously nothing happened.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. Claire, in your work, worked for intelligence agencies and then other organizations. You analyzed the geopolitics of regions, and you analyzed the psychology and the political philosophy of individuals in those regions. Having that expertise regarding the Middle East and the system of Islam, when you heard in December of 2017 he's doing what every president since 1995 has feared to do because of what you heard in that clip, particularly John Kerry sitting there like making pronouncements from a throne in the Acropolis or something. There's going to be explosions. What did you think was going to happen in the Middle East at the end of 2017 with the embassy actually moving?
Well, during my government service, I was never an analyst. I was always an operations officer, and I never focused on the Middle East either. All of that came later. But I'll tell you, when I heard that announcement from the president in December of 2017, I had already been looking at the president's previous, earlier trip in May of 2017 to Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. You might recall that King Salman had gathered together there, called in all the Sunni leadership, or most of them anyway, of the Middle East. And they had assembled there in Riyadh. The president came to speak. And you might recall, and I remember this very distinctly because I spoke about it actually at a talk on Capitol Hill, lost a board membership because I thought that this was a positive statement of his. I called it tectonic plates moving. That's the first time I think I ever thought to use that term in that talk. Shortly after the president's trip, later May, I was speaking 2017. And I saw the way that he was addressing that leadership. He was not there as a supplicant. He was not there asking for, excuse me, their cooperation or their assistance with the Palestinians or anything like that. He was there, and I use this term, he was there as the capo de tutti capi, a non-politician whose career had been in building hotels and casinos in places like New Jersey and New York, dealing with the mafia, dealing with the mob. He knew how to do that. Those were the assembled mob bosses of the Sunni world, and that's how he talked to them. And I thought that really set the stage. And so by the time we got to December of that year, 2017, I was not surprised that he was, first of all, keeping a campaign promise that he had made during 2016, but that also he had a vision of the Middle East that was going to be very different than the vision of those who had preceded him. And of course, of all of these, pundits that took to the airwaves to opine. I saw change coming, and I thought it was going to be good change, and so it has become.
Yeah, I got to say, I was a little skeptical because, as we know, there's an element within Islam, the Islamic jihadis, who want to take every advantage to create chaos and craziness and all of this. And what better one than the move of the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem? I mean, that was a tectonic shift. And Ron, when we were preparing to go in May of 2018, we probably could have had double the number of people, but a lot of people who wanted to come just felt that it's going to be dangerous there. It's going to be dangerous. It's going to be dangerous. What do you do? Going back this next year, May, what do you do to assure people listening now who may want to come with us? What do you do when you lead your tours with us to Israel to reinforce the security element? You've been going for 30 years and me for 10 or 15, whatever, never anywhere, but assure the people what you do that are safe. And then I want to get into the specifics of what took place this week in Washington.
Well, it's how to assure people that don't want to be assured. People that say it's dangerous to go to any place in the world, no matter what you're going to say, they're going to say something to counter what you just told them. But if we show that clip that you showed just a couple of minutes ago, that the world is coming to an end with the moving of the embassy, and nothing like that ever happened. And I can talk about over 35 years of going to Israel with over 100,000 people and never had an incident that I had to regret going, or anybody in my groups ever had any incident that they could say, I wish we never went. The contrary, the people who went to Israel, all these 100,000 people are my best salesmen. They are the ones that go around and say, you must join, because you're not only going to go and see a historical place in the world, but you're going to learn something about what's going on. And everything you're being fed during your time watching media is nothing but propaganda. Let me tell you, Tom, I was in Israel with groups at time of wars in Gaza. And our people on the buses never knew there was a problem. The only time they found out that there were issues when we came at 7 o'clock in the evening from touring to the hotels, and they received phone calls from home asking them if they're alive, if things are okay, if they're not being in danger of any kind. And the answer was, what are you talking about? We just came back from the old city of Jerusalem. We just came back from Jaffa in Tel Aviv. We're walking the streets. There's nothing, not even sirens in Jerusalem. I'm telling you, we can talk from now to eternity and not convince those who don't want to be convinced. But those who are open and listen to people that actually made the trip, this is the easiest thing in the world. People will come and all they have to do is talk to us, talk to people that went with us, talk to Claire, talk to everybody. And that's the assurance. What do I do specifically in Israel to make sure? I never do anything that's stupid. But you and I don't do stupid things in the United States of America. If there's a problem in downtown Los Angeles, we wouldn't go there that particular night. But it doesn't mean that we wouldn't go there a week later when things are cleared up.
It makes a lot of sense. Absolutely. Hey, Claire, I'm a little skeptical, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers and listeners at 9:28 in the morning, East Coast time, Eastern Daylight Time. Tom Trento, your host. Trento Show, where we make America think again. That's our goal. Our mission right now is a spiritual battle for America, where we're trying to mobilize very successfully. We're mobilizing a lot of new evangelical Christians to get involved in voting on November 3rd, voting their biblical values, and conservative, politically conservative Jewish people. Very successful rally the other night, the Jexit rally. Michelle Terrace and Sophie and Karen, that whole crew put it together. So we're mobilizing, we're moving people. And at the same time, we have this rally of bringing Jews and Christians together. We see in Washington, D.C., the UAE, United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain meeting to sign, one, a peace accord, the other, the preliminary documents for it. But Claire, here's my question from a geopolitical perspective. Is this peace agreement with the UAE, small Sunni but prominent country, why would they go against the other 55 Arab nations? Why would they go against them to line up with the evil enemy, Israel? I mean, what's the benefit there? What are the liabilities and the assets and the calculus that went through the UAE in making this decision? Is it a real agreement, or what's going on?
Well, here's what I'd say. Although the announcement of the excuse me, the announcement of the normalization of relations with the UAE came about a month ago in the middle of August. The signing ceremony was just this past week. In fact, Israel had been working behind the scenes with the UAE and with many other countries among their neighbors in the Middle East and beyond for a very, very long time. This may have come to our attention all of a sudden, but it was something that had been behind the scenes working on for a very long time by the Israelis and many countries. I'll give you examples. Of course, the peace treaty with Egypt was many decades ago, the peace treaty with Jordan, 1994. And I'll make a distinction too. Those were peace treaties. And we say peace treaties because formerly those countries were in a state of hostilities, of war with Israel. And so the agreement between them is a peace treaty. Now, what just happened with the UAE and with Bahrain, that's not a peace treaty. That's normalization of relations, which goes way further and attests to all of these discussions that the Israelis have been having and the ties they've been forging with these countries and others over time. And what do I mean? Not just the exchange of embassies and ambassadors, but also a full range of connections and relationships between the people, air flights back and forth to include not just officials, but ordinary citizens and tourists, exchanges in fields of agriculture, and medicine and water management, so important in the region, all kinds of technology, these kinds of things. This doesn't exist to that extent with Egypt and Jordan. That's why this is different. So also the UAE and Bahrain are not going against the other 55 members of what you're referring to, the OIC, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, the head of state global organization of all Islamic governments, 56 countries plus the Palestinian Authority, 57 members. There are a whole bunch of them who are expected to be in line behind the UAE and Bahrain to follow with normalization of relationships with Israel. And among those, at least have been spoken about, are countries like Oman, Sudan, Morocco. And I'll point out that these countries, either like Oman, have good relationships with Iran, or are so geographically distant from Iran, like Sudan and Morocco, that they're not really part of the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC group's fear of Iranian aggression and jihad expansion and nuclearization. They don't have that fear in Sudan and Morocco. So something else is going on besides merely an alliance to counter Iran's expansionism and aggression.
Wow, that's fascinating. At 9:34 in the morning on the 18th of September, Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of a new year for our Jewish sisters. And I have Clare Lopez with Dr. Roni Wexler. We're discussing the geopolitical situation going on in the Middle East with the normalization of relations signed by the UAE this week and the intent with Bahrain and some other, as the president says, I got some more coming on. I got some more. But you know, on this happy day of a new year, all is not well in the Islamic world. There are some people, Roni and Clare, who do not agree with this. And the Palestinian Authority and Hamas have called today in the mosques worldwide, essentially for a day of rage, a day of objection, a day of resistance to this, that the Arab world is now lining up with the infidel, the Jewish infidel. And we happen to have live an imam with us who can share that perspective. Imam Abdullah, can you share your perspective as a representative of the Palestinian Authority?
Yes, well, Tom, I can tell you that we are very, very upset at this normalization with the occupation entity, the Zionist entity. We are infuriated at our so-called Arab brothers for selling us out with this pact of treason, an absolute stab in the back of the Palestinian people, and in embarrassment to the Gulf cooperation and the other Arab and Muslim countries that are looking forward to relations with the Zionist entity. We are very upset and have actually instructed, the Palestinian Authority has instructed the imams to denounce, to use every ounce of energy to prevent this normalization from happening. We're very upset.
Okay, that's the Imam Abdullah. Actually, that's Damon Rosen, and Damon just read from documents that were released today by the Palestinian Authority as instructive directions for every mosque in the world to take an oppositional position to this normalization of relations. We figured we'd add a little flair to Damon, but he's reading from a Palestinian Authority document sent out today. Roni?
And that is pretty much how they sound, Tom.
Yeah, I know. They sound like that. Roni, your thoughts on the PA's position on what's taking place?
Well, obviously, it's quite ridiculous, but in the Middle East, nothing makes sense sometimes. Just because in Gaza, the Hamas didn't get their money from Qatar, that Qatar is supporting them on a monthly basis. And where it goes, I don't know, but I assume it goes to Hamas and pay their salaries. Just because they didn't get it on time, rockets were shot at Israel. Where the sense in this, I don't know, but it is what it is. But I want to add something to what Claire very wisely said before. The treaties with Egypt and Jordan were very important, but there was ceasefire mainly. You know, we stopped shooting at each other and started to become so-called friends, lukewarm. And the reason you and I travel and we go on tours to Israel, I would say that hardly any Egyptian came to visit Israel, with the exception of, you know, people that needed to be there, government officials and people that came to do some business. Same thing, a little bit different, but from Jordan. For Jordan, it was easier because going to Samaria and Judea, they went to visit also families. So it was a lukewarm. It proved itself because the time of the Arab Spring, you know, it still held on. You know, the peace was still there. But with what we see now is a different story. You know that I was in Dubai and Abu Dhabi doing seminars with Daniel Pipes, and what I saw there indicated to me that the people there do not see Israel as an enemy. And that was 3 years ago. The idea for me to talk to people in the government and universities to put together a symposium, to put together a conference was like going to Europe and do the same thing. So it's a mature group of people, sensible group of people, anybody that can stay away from tribal wars like in Iraq and Iran and Syria and put them together under United Emirates already tells a story. Now, the other thing is Israel is very poor in resources, natural resources. And we say that Israel did so well because we didn't have those natural resources and we needed to use our brains. So we became innovators and we created all kinds of things and it was good. But if we had some natural resources or more money, that can go sky high. And the idea now with the Emirates and Bahrain and perhaps other countries, the necessary part that was missing from Israel, which was natural resources and money, come together and as I said before, the sky's the limit. This could be the next block in the world that will be the engine for the entire world when it comes to finances and developments.
Finances, development, technology, all of that. Tom Trento, your host here, The Trento Show, 940 in the morning here, 440 in Israel. Damon, I'm going to get to you in a minute. I want a quick report from you. You're in the Jerusalem area and what's going on with the lockdown on Rosh Hashanah, what life is like right now. We have Dr. Roni Wexler, Clare Lopez. We're analyzing the implications of this normalization of relations, which is part and parcel of a peace treaty. When you make peace, you normalize relations, and what that means to that region. And Roni's saying, because of the evolution of Israel as essentially a startup country in 1948 to a leader in technology and finance and other of institutional and government responsibility. If the Arab world becomes friendly with the Israelis, everything can become productive. But we know there's this underlying Islamic jihad fighting mentality, and Damon articulated that by a letter that was released from the Palestinian Authority today, calling essentially for an uprising against this. We think it's going to be bluster. You know, you never know. There may be a little craziness here and there. But there's a movement, particularly with the pandemic, ironically, how such a globally horrible situation can stop people and cause them to think about life. And Israel's helping people, sending equipment and help everywhere. Damon, what's the give us a short status report on the Wuhan situation in Israel and how Rosh Hashanah is being approached in that tiny country.
Well, it's crazy. We just started our second lockdown 2 hours and 40 minutes ago. And it's supposed to last 3 weeks, and all retail will be closed, restaurants, any entertainment. You can only go jobs that don't deal with the public. Those people can go to work. You have to stay within 1 kilometer, a little over half a mile of your house for exercise or anything like that. The grocery stores will be open, the pharmacies, eye doctors, emergency animal care, stuff like that will be open. And what I want to give my 2 cents on the agreement. It is, what the Palestinian Authority, their reaction to this peace deal is so opposite of what peace is. And something that's really come out is that the Arab countries, particularly the Gulf Arab countries, are tired of sending billions of dollars over the years to the Palestinian Authority that basically puts it in the leadership's pocket. It doesn't get to the people and has advanced them nowhere. And they finally said our national interests, our national security interests in regard to Iran and Turkey, we need to be friends with Israel, and we're not going to let these rejectionists, realize how many peace offers that the Palestinian Authority has rejected since Oslo, that the leaders of the Gulf Arab states are like, you know what? I'd rather be friends with the Israeli Air Force than a bunch of thieving troublemakers in Ramallah and Gaza.
Claire, your comments on David's insight and help us understand Erdogan in this whole mixture. We hear he thinks he's the Saladin in establishing a caliphate. What's going on with the Gulf states moving away from the Palestinian? What role does Erdogan play in this?
Well, a couple things come to mind. First of all, as our very good friend Steve Coughlin sometimes talks about, there is this concept called the Maoist, the splinter movement, the Maoist splinter movement theory, right? And what that means in the context of the Middle East and what we're looking at is that there are different levels, there are different tiers of response from the Islamic world to what's going on. And so what I see happening is that because the currently violently kinetic jihad groups, Al-Qaeda, Islamic State, Hamas, Hezbollah, Taliban, Boko Haram, etc., are pushing the envelope further and further out to the violence, that leaves space behind them in some sense, kind of like riding in a bicycle peloton, catching the slipstream for those who now look moderate by contrast. It doesn't mean that the Islamic world is giving up Islam or jihad or Sharia. And certainly President Erdogan, Recep Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey is doing no such thing. Of course, he's in a loose alignment with Qatar and with Iran. And that would be the second tier behind the violent, currently Islamic jihad groups. But behind them then becomes this space. Now look at the text and look at the commentary about the text of the agreements between Israel and the Emirates and Israel and Bahrain. And you will find not only are these agreements called the Abraham Accords, but there's a very strong emphasis about focusing on what? Interfaith dialogue, right? So in the Maoist splinter movement theory, the violent jihadis go off on a rampage as they always have and always will. The jihad states like Erdogan, who indeed sees himself as a neo-Ottoman jihad leader, a neo-sultan, if you will. Not having a whole lot of success with that, by the way, in terms of getting anyone to follow along with him. But behind that comes this. So they're not going to follow violent jihad or kinetic jihad right now, but they will do interfaith dialogue. And we know that in Abu Dhabi right now, they are constructing on a site a set of a church and a mosque and a synagogue all on the same compound, as it were. This is interfaith dialogue, which is a form of jihad, if you think about it, and has had a whole lot more success in infiltrating, penetrating, and co-opting Christian and Jewish communities, certainly here in the United States, but I'd say the West more broadly, than violent jihad, because that's seen as for what it is and resisted. And we're strong enough to resist that militarily. But this is less clear. It's more subtle. That's the direction they're going.
Wow, that's a fascinating insight, ladies and gentlemen. 9 in the morning. Tom Trento, your host. We got Damon zooming in from Israel. He's supposed to be here in the studio, but he's locked out of the United States right now. Dr. Roni Wexler with us, Clare Lopez. We're analyzing the status of the Middle East vis-a-vis the agreements that two men headed up, Bibi Netanyahu, and Donald J. Trump, the president. Ronnie, I'm going to ask you a question in a minute. To what extent can we have this success in the Middle East placed in the operational hands of the Prime Minister of Israel, President of the United States? I'm going to ask you that in a second. How instrumental have these men been? But Claire just opened up a huge warning. We saw here in 9/11, 20 years ago, almost 19, that there was a kinetic force, a forceful movement by the jihadis to scare Americans to submission. And they saw very quickly that 700,000 hunt licenses in Pennsylvania. Everybody's got a gun everywhere in the United States. You're not gonna scare everybody. And it took about 6 or 7 years before there was a paradigm shift to an intellectual jihad, a cultural jihad, an intersectional jihad, a interfaith jihad, and they've been extremely successful to the degree that two jihadis, Talib and Omar, are part of the United States Congress, and they hate the country. This, Claire just warned, could be happening on a global scale. We got to watch that. But Ron, to what degree can Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu be congratulated for bringing this accord together?
Tom, this is a fantastic question. But just 2 seconds about what Claire said. President Gamal Abdel Nasser in Egypt, and followed by Saddam Hussein in Iraq, and now Erdogan are trying to do the same thing, basically. The first two failed miserably. And once you fail twice, you try the third time, it just doesn't work. So I don't see this as even a possibility that he can be a factor in what is being happening now in the Middle East. But he's trying. Now, Bibi Netanyahu was by far the best Minister of Finance Israel ever had. In his time, he changed the economy of Israel 100%. We came from an impossible financial situation to the best time Israel ever had financially.
This was in the 90s, right, Ron? In the 90s?
Before he became prime minister in the 90s, he changed everything. He revolutionized the finance ideas of Israel. He made it flexible. He opened it up to the world. He changed the system of the currency. it was unbelievable. By far, he was the best thing ever happened to Israel when it comes to economy. President Trump, in the last 3 years before the corona, made America to what America needs to be, the most secure country in the world, financially and otherwise. And now when they talk among themselves, they share ideas and thoughts. Even when they come to talk about the F-35, selling or not selling them to the United Arab Emirates, this is all business. And I think you and I, way back, said that unless you govern a country like you govern your own company with balance sheet, with not spending more than what you take in, you're gonna fail. But those two individuals know it, inside in and outside out, and inside in and inside out. And I think that in Hebrew we say Tor Azahav, the golden times are coming. And this is exactly what I see in this new peace or normalization accords that were signed between those three countries. Look, it's hard to understand because Bahrain is a monarchy of a small group of people controlling a huge number of Shia. They don't see eye to eye with Israel. But as we say, money talks. And I think this whole idea here is economical strain, there's sanity behind it, and it's going to turn the Middle East to an empire.
Wow. Hey, our hour has flown by, and this is fascinating, absolutely fascinating. While you were just speaking, Ron, about the golden time, it hit me that 46 days from today, I don't know where we are with the 4th or 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th election in Israel, but I'm assuming even at the 10th election, Netanyahu will win. We have 46 days, and though many of us feel the president is going to win big in the United States, theoretically he could lose. What I'd like to do next Wednesday, invite all of you back and analyze what the Middle East will look like if the Harris-Biden administration takes over. Think of that this week. And I want to do some preemptive thinking. I want to be forward, kind of red team, what the Middle East is going to look like if the John Kerry and Clinton regime ideology, the AOC progressive ideology, takes foot in an administration that can have an impact in the developments right now that are taking place in the Middle East. And I think a show like that with you two experts and even the imam will scare the hell out of people in the United States of America. And sometimes you got to scare them to get them out to the polls on November 3rd. So will all of you come back next Friday?
Sure.
Absolutely.
All right, there you go. Ronnie, have a wonderful new year. We'll see you in a couple of days. And you have nothing to atone to any of us here at the United West, so don't worry about it, okay?
No, but don't take it away from me. Any of my friends who are listening to me, if I did anything wrong, if I wronged you in any way, inadvertently or anything, please forgive me.
All right. On that note, we leave.